trying to get a pick, even if you grab someone really high value, like a Mina or something like that, if you can't instantly eviscerate her before the team comes in, he just doesn't have that much more going for him. Like, yeah, he has some good stuff in lane. The ult can be a good thing to further your momentum when you're already up, but I feel like anytime you're playing from behind, he just feels really inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, he just gets bullied out of his burrow and just kind of gets fried.
Yeah, I feel like the especially when, for you guys in drafting a comp that I think features a lot of lane dominators, I think one of the things you see out of lane dominators is a lot of mobility, like in general, like the ability to not just do some damage, but to like press the advantage, to dive T1s and get kills on the laning phase. Where like like Venator and Geist, these heroes are like they're good. They can even be like decent in lane. I don't think they're bad laners, but they're not generally going to dominate. They're more like going to stalemate and like do a decent farm. But I think like going from Mina and Mirage allows you to like not just is like to dive deeper. And then later in the game when you're whatever your Mina, your Mirage, you're pushing a side wave. You're like the ideal heroes to just get away long enough where hey, even if you do get comboed, it's like so deep down your lane that then Mo ends up feeding or just being unable to really commit for those plays. Where I feel like for me, the Mo feels better if you're like, I don't know, there's some like Chungus side laner that you want to jump on and like you need to just have more time to DPS them down versus the Mina and the Mirage, where the actual problem is just getting them the first time, like slowing them down, stopping them from absolutely just, getting back like 100 meters down the lane to where, it's just unrealistic that you're going to win a fight there.
Yeah, just over chasing and wasting a resource for it. So, yep.
I want to ask you kind of big picture, Lightbringer. Do you think teams are overvaluing pick right now? Because we still saw a pretty high prio in this shift for holidays. Teams played like less Paradox, but you had the Mo come up a little bit more. In your drafts, you didn't take a hard pick character in any of these, I guess, depending if you like can kind of consider the shoulder charge on Abrams that. Do you think teams are leaning too much into like the holiday and pick characters like her?
How do I say this? When I joined, it was low-key W at the time. I remember they all had like their own ethos and how to approach the game and stuff like that. And it's always interesting to see how people see the game as a broad spectrum thing when you first come in. And I believe it was Vrake who said, if we can play a comp that doesn't require pick, we've like mastered the game. And I kind of agree with that concept because I feel like if you need to rely on a pick hero entirely, it's kind of like a band-aid for a fundamental issue you have in your approach to the game. Like, pick characters aren't doing all that much in the early game, and like you can get an advantage out of lane, and any character can do they can do stuff on the map. You don't have to just like go and farm. Like Wraith can actually punish people with her ult if she gets a good lead out of lane. I'm not saying to play Wraith as a pick character. Maybe I am a little bit, but if you get a lead, it's learning how to play with it, right? And I think we showcased that pretty well in our games as well with how we handled the golden statues. I believe it was in the first game. We had like a 2.5x lead over Abraham's. I think in the first game it was, and it was
you guys were
grind,
more than twice much.
Yeah, it was a huge amount, and that's actually how you win the game. It's not really the soul diff as much, but the golden statues count for so much stat check power that if you're controlling that space that a pick character would normally make you afraid to walk into, if you can manage to do that without a pick character and control that space, you'll grind them down and just slowly win.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, like historically, at least as regards pick heroes in particular, at first, one of the things I thought about pick heroes is like, okay, they're actually more important in a comeback state or when you're behind. They feel more significant to me versus like the further you are ahead, the more that, they're already under their walker anyway. Sometimes it's nice to like hook them out from under the walker, but for the most part, you kind of want them to be on the map. They're kind of pressing you and you can kind of, come out from your walker, kill somebody with a quick pick hero, and then, maybe bait the team fight more defensively after that. Because you're not offering so much in the straight up team fight. Like I actually really liked in game one, the Bebop felt really perfect for that draft because they have Billy Pocket, they have Venator, they have a bunch of stuff that you are super scared of that you always need to run away from. And so you just want to like ensure, hey, like I know you already want to run away from me. I'll invest a whole hero just to catch one guy because I think we'll be in that state of you constantly running from us in open ground, maybe more often. But if you're for your guys' drafts where, hey, you're kind of gonna probably 2-2-2 the map or maybe 1-4-1, but with like a lot of movement to the side lanes, a lot of mobility and all the heroes, how often is the pick hero really gonna do that versus Apollo or Calico, who it's like we call heroes pick heroes. We say, oh, this is a Paradox, this is a Holiday, right? This is certain kind of hero. This
It's
is a
the
Bebop
character with a hook. Yeah.
Yeah, which is true. Which is true in a way. Like, yes, the hook is a huge part of Bebop's identity, but like Calico also offers a lot of catch and the ability, crucially, to surprise people and catch them when they're a little bit forward. And even things like Cold Front or whatever. It's like it's small, but often that can do just as much, if not more, in terms of getting a pick on the side lane, being a +1 than the traditional heroes we call the pick in that role.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how you define it, but I almost feel like it's like you need some kind of hero who is like giving you vision and having map presence to be able to invade their jungle and keep that control, and that can be Callie and Apollo, that can be a Holiday or something similar. But I think you need to set yourself up in a way where you're able to do that together and look for those picks and keep that map presence in their jungle, deny their sinners, things like that. For example, later on in NA, when Melee creeps, we'll get more into some of the weird stuff with their drafts later, but where they had the draft where it was Holiday, and then the rest of their line is Lash, Dynamo, Victor, Pocket. Like, who else is going to be, and Mirage, who else is going to be able to actually go and fight with Goober to get those picks? Pretty much everyone else is either sitting back in lane. Even when he was getting lassos, I didn't feel like they had anyone else that could really look with him and try and convert those advantages. Whereas with your comp, you didn't have a true pick hero in either of them, but you always had at least two people together who were able to look for those fights, further that advantage, keep that map control. I think you have to have a draft that can fulfill that role, even if it's not guy with hook who gets you kill.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think there's a good way to segue into NA, which is kind of McGinnis, which is in a way right now a bridge between the two regions, where the two regions are both bringing McGinnis back into the meta, which is itself, I think, a pretty significant item of news for a character that's been one of the, in general, least played in competitive play. But it's really different in both regions. EU, there's like this debuff turret stacking build. And I felt like, yes, you're McGinnis. You're always going to put a lot of pressure on the T1s and maybe move the needle in the early game. But really, it feels like the value of this character is like mid game in this build with a turret debuff. You're controlling the mid lane. Like the enemy just can't even walk up ever. You're just anytime anybody walks up, they're into the turret nest, and your team is kind of playing around that space where they can kind of go into the jungle, go into the side waves because they always know we have mid prio. We're kind of dominating there. And then late game, forcing objectives like mid boss with the whole McGinnis turret nest is pretty insane too. So you can kind of just not be very mobile, which is McGinnis's weakness, but pretty much camp it up in the mid. Whereas in NA, it's much more of a carry, right? Which we've seen actually played a little bit in the past too, with McGinnis having just a fundamentally good stats on the gun, but obviously a number of issues otherwise in her kit. But those different visions on the character, I think that's part of what is exciting about Deadlock, right? That it really doesn't feel like any of this is really solved. Although I got to admit, I think the EU build is better. I like that way of playing. It seems really consistent and really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you also get a lot of value without taking money out the map. That being said, we have played carry McGinnis. I believe we did it in the Dead Chaps tournament. And I think that us being able to play both styles of McGinnis on multiple people is just straight up OP, because like you can just pick the character and it's just an enigma in the draft. Like, who's on him? I don't know. Like, what do we ban out in second phase? And it's really hard to use that as like a marker and how to adjust your draft. The other thing I like about McGinnis right now is that she's extremely good at punishing characters that fight kind of with their bodies. I mean to say, like, characters that are like, Abrams, Calico, Drifter, these characters that are kind of teleporting to you and they're going into your space, you can kind of bait them in, and the wall really screws these characters if they misstep for even like a millisecond. Second best gun in the game, she's going to cook you if you can't one-shot her as well. And I mean, she can super stat check with the tier 1 healing, what is it called? Spectre? Healing Spectre, I think.
Yeah. We were talking about that on the cast. We're like, wait, what is this called?
Yeah, I think it's Healing Spectre. Also, the other hidden thing that McGinnis kind of has going on for her, she has boon scaling spirit resist, and it is some of the highest base resist a character can get. So putting her in the capacity of a farmer is actually pretty good, because she's going to reach that cap a lot earlier. 22 base spirit resist is definitely not something to scoff at. That is a big stat stick to just give someone that can shoot a gun that does 1 million damage. Let's see the scoreline here. Yeah, League
I mean, I just love how versatile she is. That I think, like, traditionally what we've always like talked about with McGinnis is, oh, you can really snowball your lane, have her run around the map, kill every Guardian, which she can do with not a huge amount of investment. If you just get like intensifying and then later on heroic aura and you hit that gun spike, she does such an insane amount of damage early on that even if you don't put anything else into your gun invest, she's still potent in the late game. I really liked the EU build, like you were talking about, Jake. I think the pressure that she applies to just be able to constantly have turrets on mid lane, constantly create pressure there. You want to challenge, oh, you've had suppressor proc on you from the 87 turrets in mid that take a comical amount of time to break. And when we're talking about the whole meta being furthering your lead, getting tempo out of lane, having really deep map presence, there's nothing that makes that easier than just having a character that can kind of solve your space in the mid lane, open up your team to have agency elsewhere. I think just giving your team agency through map control is one of the biggest things she does. And then it's like all of these other great nice to haves. Oh, you're mid boss contesting. Guess what? You have a wall. Oh, you're in a rift fight. If you're already doing your spirit invest, her ult can actually still do a pretty reasonable amount. Like, she just does so many different things so well that it's kind of a nightmare. Like, it's rare to have a character that is both now getting this prevalence in pro play, but also I was pulling up the numbers for her, and it's insane what she's doing right now in ranked. It's a 54% win rate overall, and just in Eternus this patch, which is obviously limited because people are still placing into the new rank system.
Because I don't think anyone is in Eternus yet, right? Like, isn't it like one or two people?
There was 1,000 games when I checked.
Really? Okay.
They have their own.
It must be calculated differently because I don't.
Yeah,
think
I think it's probably like the hidden MMR versus like currently what's on the screen. But let's just say among like top ranked players, she's at a 59% win rate, which is just ludicrous to see right now. Like, I think old girl McGinnis has finally done enough to get murdered next patch.
Sorry, McGinnis Nation. It's looking pretty grim on the nerf.
Yeah, I have to speak for ZP as well. ZP was absolutely certain this character is going to get obliterated in the next patch. So
when you have that strong, like, the challenging cases are when you have a huge disagreement between what the highest players are doing and the average player. But when the average player is good and like better than good, 55% is amazing. And then the highest players are like, it's even more extreme. It's just sort of, it's a portend of things to come that, like, there's something significantly powerful about this character in the current meta. It's just a little overtuned. And maybe it can also be a case of, like, I think as people get better in general at Deadlock, the competitive reality shifts. I think things like not playing a specific pick hero, I think, like, how you utilize the prio out of mid, even in ranked, it's like there's just going to be over time. Like, one thing I found in other games, that over time, the even in ranked, you got to give people credit. Everybody is improving over time, right? Like, the level of play at a given rank is in fact probably better than it was, a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. Slightly, little by little, but people get better at playing around McGinnis. Like, I feel like her weakness is that as a pure individual, she's like has less options, like less movement, less playmaking potential. But when the team's playing around her, those things aren't issues anymore. She becomes like the ultimate +1, or rather the ultimate recipient of a +1.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to that as well, if you went and looked at some of the fights that involved Pocket with McGinnis, the contestant mid, this go around, I believe there were multiple 3-man afflictions. There was a 6-man affliction even at some point against my team, I believe. And everyone just leaves a pit like, yeah, whatever. Who cares? To do any damage. And I mean, McGinnis is just there, and it doesn't even matter what she builds. She could just have one skill point in her too, and that's the contribution she's giving her whole team, which is really unreal.
It's interesting too, because when I was thinking about nerfs, right, one of the first things that comes to mind that they have historically, the dev team has really used as a way to nerf, is moving stats up the AP track on skills. Like, you'll get that resist, but you'll get it at +2 or +5, right? And like, it's still powerful, but you get it significantly later. But that one's interesting because people are maxing the Spectre relatively early and really valuing its ability to like turn a fight around. So that has been a really like a skill that's been problematic in the past. I remember there was, what was it? Maybe it was like the range was scaling with Spirit or something. So I remember there was some meta where the McGinnis heal would like cover the whole patron pit. Just be like,
I think it was
unbelievably enormous.
it was both spirit and range and duration, I believe. I think you could have like a 20-second Spectre that was like absolutely massive.
Yeah,
So
you're just
if
like,
you
I
actually got to
guess we're in the
patron with
McGinnis
it,
yell for the rest of the game. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, it was
That's great.
your stuff's dying.
Yeah, I wonder if like making it destructible would shift it all. That you just had to be a little bit more tactful about where you place it. Because even like with her turrets, they're breakable now. But if you have them well positioned, it is annoying enough to have to divert to that in the fight. I feel like that would be an easy way to maybe balance it out a little more. I don't know if that would make it too weak to border on more useless, but that was like the first thought that came into my head with that specific ability.
Yeah, or make it like a melee thing, like the Graves Tomb could be interesting.
Yeah, you have to like heavy melee at once to break it.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like, okay, you could defend it with parry, and there's an interesting sort of gameplay loop there, which still is like pretty risky, you know. But if you're overrunning the McGinnis and you're like super confident and you have a source of unstoppable, then okay, there's some maybe more reliable way to respond to it, especially around forced fights like the rejuve or the mid boss, or even honestly on the rifts at times.
I mean, but previously you could kill it. You could just shoot it. No one knew that you could shoot
Is that
it. And
really? I didn't know that was ever in the game.
And no one cared because the stat stick nature of it wasn't like it is now, where it's like giving you legit sphere resilience and healing a massive chunk of your HP. So maybe they should just bring that back. I don't know, just let you shoot it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good moment to talk about NA. I'm sure we'll also talk about some McGinnis in the drafts there, but maybe we can take a look at some of the NA drafts because, you know, we always see things are quite different meta-wise between EU and NA, but this week was like more than most. Melee creeps were getting kind of wild and wacky with the drafts. Some of which I do think is interesting. Like I don't completely hate some of their drafts, even the ones that really fell flat, to be honest. But take a look here. Of course, the challenger match with Pulsar. I mean, they feel like they were trying to go for a lot of playmaking, but it ended up kind of odd where the carry is a little light. There's not much gun damage in the Pulsar draft for game one.
Yeah, I mean, game one, to speak to Pulsar, I mean, they're playing with different members this week, right? I think they had Crayon last week as well. So, I mean...
Yeah, they had two roster changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're minus two people. Like it's going to be like an onboarding process. So you're not expecting too much out of them in the first week. So they just gotta get on board, figure out what they want to do with their comps. I do agree that their draft is a little bit scuffed. They first picked McGinnis, which is the character's good, but
yeah, overall first.
But if you're conceding Billy Mirage is going to
yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. But also you need to consider what your enemy is going to draft as well. Like, is McGinnis going to get first two'd by Poppers? You know, I don't know. It did later on, sure, but were they going to do it against you guys? I don't know.
Yeah, with those heroes still available, it does feel a little crazy. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. I feel like you can't give up Billy in the first pick slot. For me, that hero I think has kind of risen to the top of the draft. Right? I feel like once you give up Billy. If you give up a Billy +1 into the second pick, you're in huge trouble, in my view, at least. Maybe the Mirage, but I don't think the Mirage has looked that good for me in the overall first slot in comparison, at least. Where Billy just feels so consistent. Like even if Billy's not, the thing is, even Billy doesn't have to have an amazing game. Like he still has an amazing team fight ult.
When you have Billy, you're always just like
utility.
one good chain gang away from getting back into the game. It feels like, and that's
like I mean, no matter what you draft,
super consistent value.
Yeah, no matter what you draft, there's going to be AoE damage combos on the chain gang, like, and it just fits. I think that's why Billy's so good right now, is that he doesn't. Some of the other frontliners were like good when they synergized. There's multiple frontliners. They're all stacking on Kelvin. They were like all so good together. But now it feels like if you're gonna have one frontliner, you kind of want them to have their team fight in a box and not necessarily rely as much on other people.
Sure. There is a kind of binary interaction in draft with Doorman and Billy. Doorman's actually a really solid counter into Billy. So it's a bit odd that Pulsar was willing to give up Doorman. Like they banned Doorman in this draft, and it seems a little bit silly to do that. Like when you want to kind of create that threat of a counter pick draft, it's kind of the only character I think is actually a super good counter pick into Billy, because you go through the door, it instantly breaks the chains. You could just press 4 on him and the chains are useless. It's one of the only characters that has that power. So it seems a bit odd to ban out his hardest counter and then give it to him.
That's a good point. I've been forgetting about Doorman because he's just never makes it.
He's always bad.
So I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe they got Doorman on Farmer's Pupils. Like, Doorman is the true alpha and the omega like that. I just don't even see that character in EU at least because I think that the team fight potential of Door, it's literally Overwatch right now. Like the Sim TP, it turned out the better when you have a full competitive team and they're all utilizing the power of a teleport simultaneously. It like scales so explosively with your team coordination and skill. When you have 6 guys clown carring out of a doorman door and then back into it, it's like, oh my god, the ability to traverse the map and put a huge amount of power in an aggressive position and then immediately retreat with no risk. I mean, that's a extraordinarily strong ability in competitive play.
Now all Symmetra mains are simultaneously validated.
I mean, Sim's good in Overwatch, guys. it's a meta hero now. It's a crazy time for folks who've been away for time. I won't go down the Overwatch rabbit hole, but yeah, I mean, Popper's pupils look really comfortable today. And for melee creeps, I mean, like, I think we was talking about those drafts. That's where it gets interesting, right? Is with melee creeps.
Yeah, it gets a bit.
Yeah, like they're I've seen them. In fairness, I would describe like at least this game 1 draft as like the ultimate team fight draft. I have seen them make this kind of style work.
I mean, the challenger match last week, they played a pretty similar comp to this, and they rolled with it. They looked very good just playing. They had the McGinnis in that one, but it was similar with like I think it was Victor Dynamo Guinness, and they won one mid boss that was impossible to contest. They forced the next one off cooldown. There was just nothing you could do against it. But this game, I don't think they got a single team fight. Popper's Pupils just drafted a comp that was better out of lane. Average, Xeno, and like League all got off to really hot starts and did as Calico and McGinnis do, where you get massive map control. Average goes on his mission to just constantly be in the jungle, constantly creating problems against a comp that is really pretty hungry for farm. Like Saya was getting eaten alive this game on the Victor. I think he had something like 10 deaths by like 20 minutes into the game. Could just never get much going with this Victor. And then they did have Goober on the holiday, but kind of what I was talking about earlier, I didn't feel like they had anyone else that ever wanted to be fighting with him and trying to get active, and they never really had an opportunity to get a pick to open a team fight, much less to get into a team fight position before they were just losing someone to either Xeno or Average getting involved before they could get into one of those winning situations.
In particular, I wasn't really happy with their top 3 as well. I mean, Mirage is a great character, but I don't rate him as a carry. Like, I just do not see that character as a carry in any capacity. I don't think he did hardly any damage this game. He's such a poor farmer. I don't know why you would put John like as your premier carry player on a character that just can't farm. And also in the last slot, I was really hoping they would go for Abrams there, so I didn't have to play Victor. As a whole, their comp, like conceptually, I really like it. It's actually got pick. It has like team fight potential. It's really good at mid. It just didn't pan out for them. I don't know. I think they just straight up got stat checked. Probably the Doorman didn't help either. I mean, Doorman's just not fun to play into, man.
Yeah, I think this Victor character is so interesting. For me, it's like the reason you pick Victor is that you almost are like, you're like hoping he can get away and become a secondary carry or become like this like crazy, like damage threat where you just like run in and bomb somebody out before you ulti, and then your whole team is like super high mobility and they can follow that up. I actually like it kind of less when you already have so much team fight. I feel like it's a way to get a lot of team fight in one character that we're like, you're not going to help him as much. And you're like, we'll just throw Victor in there and like, we'll be making plays, but we're like not really going to try and hit big AoE spells with the Victor, at least usually. Like, I don't mind the Lash with him, but I think having the pocket and the Dynamo, it's like you already have so much solution for those moments. I feel like your bigger issue is just staying on the map, staying active, to your point about Abrams, in terms of like, hey, you still some stun, still some front line, still a lot of team fight, but a lot more uptime, a lot more consistency and ability to, we were talking about this before, like +1 with the holiday, or the Lash, right? In terms of setting up, like, I think Abrams for me is actually one of the best combo heroes with Lash, because shoulder charge out of Death Slam is like an insane combo, like reliable AoE shoulder charge on everybody who's all stacked up, turns a stun into like a 10-second sequence.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they definitely went too all in on team fight, I think, and then they didn't have a backbone, like a proper carry to kind of carry them through. Also, their Lash did a spirit build, which it looked really ineffectual as well. Max won 0 points in his 2. which I think is tier 2 on the 2 is probably one of his most effective points that he has outside of Flog, basically. And yeah, it just felt like, I don't know, their team fight ended up feeling anemic even. Like they just felt kind of, I don't know, they just couldn't play the game out of lane. And they did okay in lanes as well.
I think it's one of those things where even if like we can see the theory and like look at it, at the end of the day with the players you have on your team, the argument against is always like, is this better than just playing a more normal draft, slapping John on the Venator and letting him do the thing? And I don't know. I mean, they did go back to trying that game 2 where they returned to that. But I think like game 2, then you had the issue where they had basically no front line. And when they were trying to play any of these team fights, John was just getting exploded before he had an opportunity to do anything in those fights. But yeah, the way that they picked him onto Mirage didn't feel great. I would have loved to, like obviously he's a great pocket player as well, but OC's, I've loved watching him play the Mirage. I think if you had just given something that was more in John's pool, flesh that out. I don't know. I think this team has a lot of easy wins with the players that they have on it, and I respect going for something more interesting off the read. That's kind of been their identity, but it just did not really work out here.
In the final game here, in the first game they had respect banned Gruber's Bebop, and they straight up slammed it first pick, getting Bebop. And I quite liked their draft all the way up until Infernus and Mina. I thought those two characters made 0 sense into their top 2 on Pauper's team.
Yeah, I agree actually so much. I agree. So I like that. I wasn't around for this game because I went to bed. I'm kind of jet lagged, but I love the top 4 because I feel like you have like hook into Venator Ivy, kind of like you have like a crazy control combo from like a sequestered position. Anywhere you like Venator, you kind of park the Venator and have, Ivy behind is like, oh, like if you get hooks to that position, whoever you hook is dead, like guaranteed dead, and you're going to follow up on the team fight from that position as well. And Calico could set those up as well. I actually don't mind Mina in a way to be like, hey, just go on the side lane and we'll see you later. Like hopefully you're farmed and you can add more burst damage and be evasive in the fights. But I think Infernus kind of sticks out here. I would so much rather this be, I don't know, is it Drifter crazy or
I would almost say just it's another game where the Abrams would have felt really good to have frontline, and it's a good role for Saya as well.
Yeah, they went for a denial pick on Calico. I don't know if you watched the game or not, but Average went from having an insane game on Calico the game previous to having a absolutely horrific early game on Geist. It felt like they were really abusing the pick. So I was kind of cheering again for them to pick Abrams in third position here because I know that character is really good for control. Especially when you see McGinnis in draft early. And they went for the deny pick, and it kind of worked out to their favor a little bit, but they just lacked the front line. They couldn't do anything really. I mean, Infernus is just running around dying, I'll be honest. I don't really think he did much of anything.
Even just on the eye test, I'm like, how do you play Infernus in a game like this? Like, I think against Apollo and Mirage, even Holiday too, I think these are all really bad matchups for Infernus. Like you just get riposted or
just like shoulder charge and McGinnis wall too means like if you're ever trying to like go in flame dash something like that, they have so much lockdown just to even like tornado from the Mirage. Like pretty much every character on this team has something to stop you if you're trying to make space, and it kind of shows in Saya's death count. I mean, he was doing the thing. He was trying to create space in some of these fights, and he was just getting obliterated most of the time.
And he's just going to get stat checked by McGinnis's too. Again, I mean, like you're putting this damage field on the ground, and I'm pretty sure it's just straight up getting out healed. I don't think I would ever draft that character in the McGinnis. And Mina to some extent as well. I think Mina played a really good game given the hand she was dealt specifically in this game. I think she played really well. But yeah, the Infernus looked horrible, and I conceptually I don't like the Mina either, just because of McGinnis being in the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for Melee Creeps. Definitely a tough week for them. Pauper's Pupil's really resurgent, a couple of victories, but that's a team that like you got to put a ton of respect on individual mechanics wise. I do think Pauper's Pupils has some of the strongest individuals on NA. Like if they can like put together good team play, good fights, I really think they are the best team in North America at the moment. Melee Creeps, historically, their strength has been, for me at least, drafting. It's been team play and synergy. But in fairness, with all the roster changes, like I don't necessarily expect a ton of consistency from them this early on. It's effectively a new team with like a couple of the old members. It was, if anything, pretty surprising that they were able to come out and have a huge showing in their first couple of weeks. But I think now the reality of like, hey, Parvus Pupils is like went back to the lab, kind of figured out what was going wrong against them, made the adjustments, and this is maybe what we can expect. But by the same token, I think Melee Creeps has the same opportunity to like keep working with this roster and keep developing through the adversity there.
Yeah, they're definitely good players. I mean, they just got to put the time in and get some scrims in, and adjust their draft hopefully. Because I wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. Their draft was weird for.
Solomon, do we have the item priority? I think. I wonder if we have that from the last shift or if it's there, because I think items are always an interesting spot to maybe step back from the specifics of heroes and their drafts and to kind of look at some of the larger trends. Still counterspell. Oh, I mean, this item been changed in the last few patches? I feel like after it was changed at some point a long time ago, and then it just has slowly risen to now being one of these definitive items alongside Tank Buster and Slowing Hex.
I mean, this item is a really good answer to characters like Infernus or Lash. There's a lot of characters right now in the meta that are like kind of like one-shot characters where they just kind of do a big burst of damage, and it's very easy to counterspell them. The cooldown on it is really low, so there's not a lot of penalty to cast it. It heals you. It gives you a big chunk of spirit. I think it gives you move speed still.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and it's a no risk thing to just do like a dash parry when you're running away from someone. Just get a free heal, a big burst of spirit, and it's really easy to use and really rewarding. And I think the only reason they're keeping it good is probably just because you can mess it up.
Yeah,
I think it's a hype
good
item
for the game for it to be good. That it has a kind of high skill floor that like if you're a really terrible player and you buy counterspell, you're not going to get anywhere near the value that pros are. You're not gonna come out the gate and be able to counterspell every ultimate every time and get the timings consistent. Like it takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of feel. I feel like the only things that they could adjust on it is kind of some of the like on proc effects like you're talking about with like the heal with the move speed, or maybe adjusting the cooldown. But I just don't think it's a bad thing for the game for this item to be good. I think the entire parry and melee mechanics is just really fun and really unique to Deadlock. And I think in any game having something like this that is very high skill ceiling and has a lot of opportunity for mastery, it just kind of discounts players' time if you blow that up and you don't reward people putting the time in to get really good with the item.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask any good player, they don't hate counterspell. I don't think there's anyone that hates counterspell. You hear more complaints about dispel magic. I'll be honest. Like I think people just like that item more. Tank Buster. Yeah. Was it high this high this week or last week as well?
It looks like it was higher.
It was
Maybe it was down 3 places.
So it went up a little.
Yeah, or down from 3, I guess. Yeah, still an insane item. I do think. I mean, this dispel magic is like an interesting item for me because it brings up something that I think is I'm not sure if it really should be changed, but an oddity in the game of there being like ultimate debuffs and non-ultimate debuffs, which I get, but dispel magic kind of sticks out in a way of like the it's like basically the button you press to deal with everything other than the ultimates, and then you press your movement ability. So it just becomes like a must-buy item. It becomes like an additional sort of condition for your cooldowns. It's always, I mean, in fairness, before it was even more broken, right? When I had native debuff resist and it was like permabot, but it just turns out having an item that you can like 1-2 cast with your movement ability is just like basically can't play without it. And that's largely because of Slowing Hex. I think maybe more than anything else, honestly, I think Slowing Hex is like the most commonly dispel magicked status in the game. Because like this item is also, this item actually maybe I do think is problematically good. Right? I think Slowing Hex for me is like it is a little too good. It's another. It's
do you
like
think if they just flat doubled its price and made it a tier 3 instead of a tier 2?
I think that would be too much. It would have to be better.
Would that make it too bad?
I think that's too expensive, because part of what makes it so good is that it's a very plausible like tempo buy. In the mid game, I think a lot of heroes like get the spirit spike off of it with like some other 3,200 invest that makes sense for their character. But disabling movement abilities is a remarkably powerful thing for like setting up for follow up, and I think it's an item that it's just like the annoying thing about it is it's so good to buy like 3 of them on your team. Like that's the part where I'm like, yeah, I don't love when there's like 4 Slowing X's on the enemy team. It just feels kind of like anti-fun. I don't know. So I almost think like
It's just oppressive.
should this be affected by like the chain debuff reduction, which I believe it's not, right? Because that's only hard stuns that like the
It's hard
multiple
stuns.
debuffs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe there's some sort of more elegant solution rather than just like body slamming this item with a nerf. Because I think it's an important item in the game, but it's not a fun item. It's like no one wants to buy this item. You just have to buy it because it's so good, and it's not fun to play against either. It's just like a way,
say,
but it's important against some heroes. Like you literally wouldn't be able to play the game unless there was slowing hex against Wraith and Billy and some of these characters that you really need to lock down.
But to be fair, I mean, you're not even using slowing hex on these characters half the time. You're just throwing it on the first target you see. You don't care about their movement. You're just like, stop moving so much, please. I mean, it's not only disabling movement abilities. I mean, it's slowing you, it's dash slowing you, and it's increasing your gravity as well. So it's making your dash jump worse, your instant air dash worse, like a bunch of other things worse. I think my biggest issue with this item is that you don't need to think when you press the button. That's like my biggest problem. It is like a 27-second cooldown. If you're in mid, you see a guy, slowing hex, you don't even have to go on him. He's gonna freak out. He's gonna instantly try and run. He might even use remover, and then you can go gank him. So there's two ways to look at it. You can nerf slowing hex, or you can generally nerf movement, which everyone would also be really upset about. I think movement's super OP right now. Obviously, there's skillful movement or whatever, but in general, I think that stamina is recovering too quickly, and you could just, I don't know, you could just cover distance way too well. There's other things that are broken as well, like wall bounces, ignoring slows and stuff like that. But they're minute things that affect the necessity that is slowing hex right now.
To that point, and what you're saying about the gravity and the dash, I think that's the place you nerf this item, right? Is like maybe it's the scope of it, maybe it's some aspect of that, but the scope of the just like straightforward slows. I think like the turning off a movement ability maybe is super important because hey, like otherwise it would just be too heinous to catch Mina and Pocket and a lot of these heroes with like insane movement potential. But maybe not quite as much raw stats for like your stamina, like just reducing your stamina. Like, is that really necessary? Or like
yeah, I mean, even if it was just something like it froze stamina regen, but it still let you use stamina and like cut off movement abilities, I think that could be interesting. I think you just have to refine it so that it's good at a thing, and I think that should be locked down on movement abilities versus just like straight up destroying any ability to move for an extremely cheap item. There might be something to look at too with like cooldown to make you have to be a little bit more intentional about who you're using it on. But yeah, like you're saying, I think it's important for the game because the cost of if you destroy slowing hex and then movement stays the way it is, that's kind of problematic in its own right. But I mean, I agree, movement is extreme, but I also think that's like part of the fun, part of the charm of this game, that there is so much skill expression in the movement and that you can pull off such ridiculous things. And honestly, that everyone is kind of on equal footing with the ability to pull out those outplays. So yeah, I feel like just tuning it down on like maybe something like stamina regen would be an interesting way to keep it relevant without being just kind of thrown out constantly.
The last item I think that's interesting on this list is again Restorative Locket. I think Restorative Locket is an item that shapes the meta in a more healthy way. I know people don't like this item. They want to press all their buttons all the time. They want to have all the spell spammers. But if you want to see less Geist, if you want to see less Mirage, these characters that really are just pressing their buttons because proc someone every time Mirage presses a free button, that's the item that needs to be good. You need to be able to buy this item, or those characters are just going to permanently be played because there's not really an item that you buy against it. So it's really nice. I'm happy to see Restorative Locket back. Kind of, it's not even in like a hard meta. There's just some comps it's really good against, and you're going to see comps that buy 6 Restorative Lockets against those comps, and you're like, oh, Restorative Locket's OP, but they're just counter buying them. It's a good buy.
I agree. I think items that mitigate like a class of heroes or a class of things rather than having some like super clear like this item is good for me, it gives me good stats. Like there's plenty of those items. There's never going to be a shortage of like the good stats left to right chill items, but these are the items that have like I guess add character to a draft, or in a way it's even like a skill check, right? Is your ability to consider items like Restorative Locket when you're drafting and when you're coming into the game, to recognize it's probably not an item you're ever going to permanent left to right buy every game, but when you do buy it, it could be really fantastic. So it's like an item with a lot of variance in its impact, depending on the game, depending on the situation, and also depending on your skill, like knowing, when to press it for value and get the stamina and make that, knowing that you maybe have more stamina in the tank than the opponent because of it. I think this is another item, much like Counterspell, actually, like in terms of it being very high scaled to like actually make use of. Like, it's not enough healing to where it's like just a stats item. It's for me, when you're using all the stamina, that it shows what it can really be, and in terms of adding to your outplay, giving you like an extra boost. And like we were saying, I mean, movement is the heart and soul of the game. Like getting full bunch of stamina out of the pocket is a huge deal, right? And like those fights that go a little bit longer, everybody's out of stamina. It's a huge deal to have a few extra jumps in you.
I think the last time Restorative Lockout was in the meta, I believe Superior Stamina was also pretty popular too, and I think that was kind of why they nuked it. And now it's kind of like only the characters that really want sub-stam are kind of buying it. So or Stamina Mastery, sorry. And it's just nice. It feels like it's a anti-draft item tool, and I really like stuff like this in the game. So I hope to see more items like it. In fact.
Yeah, I like Recharging Rush too, although it's a little broken on the characters with 2 charges, but nonetheless, I think it's a fun item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like in general, to like zoom out a little bit in terms of the meta game, I feel like the game is in a pretty healthy state, relatively speaking. Like some characters that are really strong, like Pocket and Doorman, are heroes that I suspect they're pretty much always going to be strong in competitive play because there's so much pilot gap and like team play gap around what makes them effective. Maybe the Billy McGinnis, like there's definitely stuff to be changed, but in general, I'm a pretty big fan of the game at the moment, like playing. And I guess that maybe is an interesting moment to talk about like the new rank system. I know we talked about this a bit last week. But it's been fun for me to like get back into it. I've been playing some standard, trying to get a couple new characters, and I'm curious what your guys like just first impressions are on the ranked update. It feels very chaotic to me with like a lot of variance in the games where I'll see like gameplay and I'm like, whoa, like what is going on here? Like extreme high variance from both my team and the enemy team, which personally I'm not a believer in MMR resets. I think they do more harm than good. But it's not. I'm like, well, might as well like let's see what the experiment looks like in Deadlock. Might as well test that hypothesis rather than treating it as gospel.
Yeah, I think like the biggest positive that I would say that's like obvious early on is that for the most part, I feel like the people who are currently playing ranked, Deadlock is already kind of a small enough subset of the people who are very committed to the game because it is still technically invite only and all that. But the people who are playing ranked now, it is very clear that they want to be playing ranked. You cannot be playing with your friends during your placements. You have to be locked in on this. That I think the amount of like negative behavior in players that are just queuing up like just like for fun and taking it super lax and not wanting to win. I've noticed less games where you get those kind of behaviors because of how much it self-selects. I think like my overall impression right now is that it is very restrictive intentionally. Even in the patch notes, Valve was talking about how they might tune it back later, but they intentionally started at like the most restrictive with needing 15 wins, needing a huge amount of games won to cut down on anyone smurfing or anyone playing heroes that they're not super comfortable on. I think my one worry looking like a little longer term at the new system is if they keep those current numbers, how that might degrade the slightly more like casual or like people who are, they're your mailman. They're working a 9 to 5. They like playing Deadlock, but they don't have time to like put in 15 games on every single new hero to play. I think that might end up being a little overly restrictive. And the answer is always like, well, they can go play casual. That's fine. But I think that people play these games because they want a competitive experience and they like the serotonin of seeing the number go up at the top of their screen after they play a game. So I think there might be some things to be looked at lessening the restrictions. I think you could maybe balance that out by saying, hey, if you're Ascendant or Eternus, maybe it stays 100% as strict as it is now, especially with like the party makeup rules. But that's kind of my one like early thought of caution is like, what does this do to the more like average Joe player who doesn't have time to grind like 30 games a day?
I mean, I guess it's an argument to be made that casual players could play ranked. I just feel like if you're playing a game at that capacity, like if you're not really super invested, you have just one favorite character, I don't see why you would be super upset about just being kind of stuck in casual. I mean, I guess maybe you want to try your hand on your one trick.
I guess it's because part of the fun of the game, I think, is like the action of like having so many different characters with so much depth to be able to play, and you can play 15. I think like having some kind of limit on that is there, but maybe for other players, like something like 5 games in the future might be a compromise.
I also think in a way it self-selects because, or it solves this problem because at least I totally agree with you, Mimi, that like that's such a fun thing about the game. There's all these different amazing characters. They're all so unique. But if there's one thing I've learned from 10 years of Overwatch is that it doesn't matter how many cool heroes are. There will be a lot of people who want to play exactly one of them.
That is true.
Like that's just, but also the system's not problematic for them. It's like they might be playing ranked with like one hero unlocked, but like that's fine for them. Like that was always their intention, and there's no issues with that. Like that, so the system. Like 15 wins isn't that much if you're super casual, like 9 to 5 and playing the game, just for fun. If you're point tricking, you're easily going to have that hero ready for ranked and be able to play ranked on that hero if you want, and kind of expand at your leisure. I think it's a good concept to think about. Okay, maybe there's like a ranked separation here where the highest ranks have a bigger requirement. But I will say I'm very happy to see strong action against Smurfs. At least before the rank update, I felt like there was so much smurfing going on. Like so often I'm in like the top 500 and I'm playing games where I'm like, okay, this guy's obviously smurfing, like most games would have like, it felt to
well, obviously
me like,
once you get your account to E6, you never play on it again. Why would you ever play on
exactly
your account?
because people do that, and I hate that because it actually ruins the game completely, especially at high MMR. I mean, if one thing from Dota is the case where like the pro players in Dota, and I think this is like the nature of MOBAs, they're like the skill cap is so extraordinarily high. You can get so good that like even something like E6 is like not a good way of describing the skill. Like at the end of the bell curve, there still are people who are like further and further and further out away from like just regular E6 versus you're like a rank 1 player. Like that difference is so huge. If you smurf back to like E5, E6, you really are like ruining the game or having like a huge
ruining the game.
Yeah, like you're and the problem was, my feeling was like it wasn't even easy to tell what's going on because there'd probably be like 3 people doing that in most games. And so you're like, okay, I guess I'm in hell now. Like let's see what happens.
Yeah, NA was pretty bad about that as well. EU did have Smurfs, I think, but a lot of people kind of more had alts, I guess, in EU. But there's definitely a lot of Smurfs, and I mean, I'm definitely not a big fan of them. So if this is what it takes to gatekeep people from smurfing or create a barrier to entry, I mean, I'm kind of for it personally. Like you said before, though, that Valve would not be against. I think they're not against adding more than duo, and probably lowering the win count at some point.
Yeah, I think like in terms of like party size, it just inherently makes any rank system extremely difficult to get it right. When you have any larger number of party, it's just going to result in weird games, especially if you end up as like the 1 or 2 people outside the party. But I think a good system, like a lot of other comp games do, is just like in for example, like something like Valorant or CS, you can queue as 3, you can queue as 5, but you can't queue as 4. So you're forcing someone into that like last position where it's all within your party. I think like allowing 6 stacks and allowing like those like lower party counts of like duo maybe up to 4 people, but maybe making it so you can't like have 5 people have 1 random guy in your lobby is like a solid compromise. Or even just kind of moving that to some other games do it where they have like a separate flex queue, which is when you're in a larger party size, you get a different rank and it does it a little differently. I felt like that system can sometimes end up a little heavy-handed versus maybe just tuning down the impact it has on your MMR when you're partied up. But I think that is going to be one of the things to see how they approach that, because every game has had their moment in a ranked system where they have to find the solution for this, and it kind of just depends between the systems that are super laissez-faire of just, well, it's going to blow up the rank a little bit. We're going to let that happen because people want to play with their friends, versus the very locked down having separate queues kind of solution.
Yeah, I mean, when I learned Dota, I liked their solution at the time. It was a long time before they had like named ranks. It was just a number. They just had solo queue and party queue. That was it, and I thought that was a good solution. I mean, it's like your party queue is completely separated from your solo MMR, and when you wanted to actually take it serious, you just queued solo.
I'm such a big fan of solo queue, at least at the highest level. I think, I mean, partly it's just, I mean, obviously biased because I prefer to solo queue. Like, I think it's, you know, for me, that's like kind of the way I want to play the game. But I think in Deadlock, I think part of the problem is that like partying is a huge advantage if you use it like at the highest level, if you use it strategically. Like if you basically, if you're very, very high rank and you party with another player who is also very, very high rank, like high enough that you can expect that in most games, you two will be the best players on the team. And maybe the other team has equally skilled players, but at a certain point in the rank distribution, and maybe this is like E6 plus, where the game doesn't balance by having two opponents of your same strength on the other side because it doesn't have those people queuing. It just makes the entire team, like your 4 teammates are going to be a little bit lower and their 6 are going to be a little bit higher than the 4. And then you two being super high above that. Okay, it kind of works out and meets in the middle. But I think the problem with that philosophy in a MOBA game is that there's like non-linear MMR scaling when you have like, let's say the 2 people working together and coordinating to dominate a lane. Like if you just have the 2 best players in the lobby super annihilate a lane and then go like play the map from there, I think you can just do a lot more in a game than when you're solo queuing, even if you're the individual strongest player and it's the same sort of balancing phenomenon. The 2 and 4 is much more powerful than the 1 and 5.
I mean, this is from Overwatch again, but Overwatch had a similar balancing mechanic. I had a buddy, Chasm, if you guys know who he is. He used to use a ball one trick. He's rank 1 tank. I think he was like 4.6 or 4.7k MMR. This is way back when, like probably 10 years ago or something. Not 10 years. Okay, not 10 years ago, but it was Overwatch 1. It was 6v6. And I remember he waited like over an hour for a queue, and when he finally got a game, his entire team was diamond plus him, and the entire enemy team was like 3.9k. And that game is really, really hard for the guy who's super high rank. And I really hate this type of balancing at high MMR. I feel like if you're duo queue, right? If you're duo queue, like you're saying, it should wait for 2 people of equal skill. Or like, you know, if you're rank 1, 2 and you're doing, like it should wait for rank 3, 4. And if you can't get a game, you can't get a game. Solo queue. Screw it, you know? Like, I mean, why make an unfair lobby and an unfair system? Just force them to play against opponents or an equal skill lobby.
Yeah. I think the best approach overall is kind of what we were talking about earlier, where I think just for the like highest echelon of players, you should have different rules, because balancing the entire game of like you can't duo queue so that more casual players aren't allowed to do that is that's gonna like kill your game.
No, exactly.
That's never gonna work.
Duo should be banned, but I think like maybe it's like E6 duo should.
Yeah, something like that.
That'd be my preference, I guess. Once you're past the 99th percentile of the game. Because I don't think it's a problem until you get so far down the right tail of the bell curve that there literally just aren't equally skilled players queuing as you. Like, so the system has to have some way to compensate. That is not true for anybody else in the queue system. If you're not in, like, I don't think my MMR is high enough for that to really be causing an issue for me. And I'm like, you know, whatever, E5, E6, like at least before the rank update. So like for me, like I'm just before to the point where I think you really get like these big problematic issues with the matchmaker.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think it's not smart to have everyone in the same kind of rule set as regards ranked restrictions.
But I agree for like, if we're talking for general rules again, I think just the system of having a queue that's solo duo only, and then having a queue where you can flex into larger parties and it'll only put you against other large parties, I think is a very fair way to do it for people who aren't at that very highest upper echelon. And just banning anything over duos for Eternus and maybe banning any queues for E6, I think is a start to try and get that balance. But
for what it's worth, I'm a much bigger fan of party queuing. I think that you should actually strive to get 6 stacks going in high MMR. It's probably the best way to have best games. It's a pipe dream. I know it's utopian. It's not going to happen.
I mean, 6 stacks are honestly a different thing entirely, right? Like it's right at that point. We're not even talking about the matchmaker anymore, right? Like you've made your you've assembled honestly, it.
Something they could do, like what was it, League Clash, I believe. They could probably do that in this game. I think that would be fantastic on the weekend.
Which is essentially like weekly tournaments that people can run.
Yeah, Dota has Battle Cups.
A very good system.
Yeah, Battle Cup, Clash.
Yeah, I think those are great things to add as a way to like, because you're never gonna have 6 stacking be like, yeah, just hop on a Tuesday night and 6 stack. Like that's never really gonna work. Queue wise, it's just too difficult. But if you make an incentive, you make a gameplay structure for the community that says, hey, get your six stack together. It's this time every week. Like people will play those, and I mean, I think those would be a lot of fun.
And it really has to be a very small incentive. Like in the Riot titles for League and Valorant, they have a system in both of those where it's just you get like an in-game title that says you're like a premier winner or like a player card or something like that. That is super tiny and is like costs absolutely nothing to make, but people really, really value that, and people put a lot of effort into playing with their friends. And I also think as someone who's very interested in esports for these kind of games, I think for a lot of people playing like coordinated play for the first time and getting to play the like real game is like the gateway drug into getting more and more into esports and appreciating that more, which I think is very cool. I don't think there's a player count to support that right now, but once the game comes out, some kind of Premier / Clash / whichever other game equivalent you want to come up with would be a really excellent system to try and implement in client. But also, I don't think Valve ever would, because they never did anything like that for CS. It was always third parties that did that stuff.
Like the Dota Battle Cup, I think, is exactly what you're describing. Like
it was first party. Interesting.
It's because Battle Cups are old. Like I can't remember when they started. They have had that for a long time. Where
I'm surprised like you said, they never did that for CS then, and always
it's a minimal incentive.
Third party.
Yeah, CS is a crazy game too because the anti-cheat is like so heinous, right? Like I guess my understanding of CS is that if you're playing like global elite matchmaking, that there will just be a cheater every game. But I don't know if that's hyperbole because I don't really play CS, and I'm
it's not as bad as it used to be. But I think there was certainly a time where that was true.
Yeah, maybe
that's why everyone played ESEA or Face It.
You just knew that once you hit a certain rank, it's like it's just infested. But you know that's kind of the nature of CS. That game is in a way very easy to cheat in. Like even like any kind of cheat confers such a huge advantage compared to like honestly in Overwatch. One of the funny things is like I remember back in the day, like you play against cheaters and they're so bad, they're so easy to beat because if you just had like somebody who's like aimbotting, you know, like they're so bad at the fundamentals of the game that if you just play with your team and play intelligently and make good decisions, the cheat like even in Deadlock, I think you could even like I mean obviously if you're a good player with aimbot, it's obviously it's broken, you know, obviously it's cheating. But for like if you were like a bad player with full hard locking aimbot, you would still feed, and you would still fall behind, and you would still make such bad moves compared to a very high level player that you know they would be beatable.
Yeah, I mean, the people would suss you out too. That you'd end up doing the what do they call it, the pirate ship strategy and stuff like that. So you just can't shoot anyone in the head, and then you just get blasted by a bastion when you peek. They
would just know, oh, this guy, I'm not going to aim duel you. I'm going to win in another way. You know that which I think is available in Deadlock. Yeah. All right, let's take a look, guys, at the hero tier list. I think there's going to be some moves. Definitely, McGinnis is going to get some moves from last week. This is a recurring segment where we take a look at kind of the current state of the competitive metagame and talk about how strong we think characters are. I guess for me, the first item is McGinnis. I think she's A tier. I think that's fair to say. I don't think she's S tier though. We've seen like the first overall McGinnis did not work. She's looked good. But she's not Billy. She's like not Doorman.
I think she's good.
I feel like top A.
Yeah. I even want to move Infernus down in a way, maybe partially because of McGinnis. It's like that matchup is singularly so bad, and maybe the meta has kind of shifted. Lightbringer, you were a big Infernus booster a couple weeks ago. Do you think this character is still A tier? Is it Is it too situational for that?
He might be up or B. If McGinnis is going to be really prevalent in draft, it's going to feel really ugly to pick this character. I mean, he forces your team to also buy like removers, counter spells, like his ults counter spell and stuff like that. So maybe low A, high B even. I don't think he's a bad hero. I just think with the way the meta is shaking out, you have a lot of lockets being bought and stuff like that. There's a lot more spirit resist as well. Like his early tempo is starting to feel a little bit weaker. And you really notice that in his performance. I think Sonya went 0-5 or something, I think, in his game on Infernus. His build was a little bit weird, but I mean, he had 0 KP basically. Crazy. So
yeah, I mean, I'd be content to kind of demote him to like maybe the bottom of B. Is that crazy?
Bottom of B. I think he's above like Silver Paradox.
Right? Maybe he's above Silver and Paradox.
I think Mina should go up as well. Yeah, pretty much where Mina is, and I would even like kind of boost Mina up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe is Mina even? I think she might be A tier. No, like Mina feels maybe she's a little too situational.
NA doesn't seem to really care about her, but I think she's going to struggle similarly. Like, she can do stuff that isn't what Infernus is doing. She's really good at like eating the jungle and stuff like that without being overly committal. And her burst is always really strong, and obviously having a silence on an ult is always going to be insane. So I think I don't think she's really had a time where she felt bad to pick. So yeah, I don't mind putting her at A.
I feels like in the shift more and more towards the early laning phase, you know, she fits really well in like the semi carry role, mobility, side laner in that way. Who else has been a big mover?
What do you think about Abrams? Because he was making a lot of appearances this week.
He might need to be A tier again. I mean,
I feel like he might need to go up.
Honest Abe feels like, where does he go in A tier? That's, I think, the only question in my mind. I almost think this character is like, I don't know, up with like Apollo or Venator.
Yeah, I was gonna put him behind Calico. I think is where I would put him. I think that he can make a lot of stuff happen. He's just not Billy. That's like his one downside. He's literally just not the GOAT.
Yeah, I agree. I think if anything, the existence of Billy is maybe like kind of suppressing him a little bit. Like if Billy got nerfed and wasn't being played, you know, maybe Abrams would really rise. So I think I would say after Venator seems, or before Venator, between Calico and Venator, I should say, is a more clear way of saying that.
Yeah, I think
Calico's still super strong. She's still amazing. I don't know that she needs to move. Maybe Geist should just like go down a little bit in A, but it's a bit nippy. Honestly, I don't think she's...
Yeah, I mean, I think she's still strong. She's definitely one of the characters that gets hurt by the Resto Locket change. She's an example of a character that can lose meta priority. Also, she is disproportionately affected by an item like Cursed Relic, which is it's killing all of her damage. It's nuking Spellslinger stacks, it's nuking Berserker. If you curse her in a fight, she's super sad. That being said, she still's got, you know, life swap and stuff like that. She's still really solid side laner. I definitely put her a little bit lower than... I'd probably put her right alongside Venator, to be honest. I feel like they're always picked in lockstep, kind of. When you see a Geist, you see a Venator.
I feel like I still like Geist a little more than Ven, but I think it's quite close. And to your point, situational. Shout out the raids. Break, Obakim. Appreciate you guys.
W.
Lightbringer so smart. W chat from Vreg.
What do we think about Ivy? I feel like she might go above Viscous, but I don't know if there's
I think Viscous is a lot weaker
higher.
this patch. I think the nerfs have started to bite. As a Viscous spammer, I've been playing other heroes a little bit recently. I've been trying to expand my pool from trying to avoid becoming a one trick with my like 700 Viscous games. But he doesn't feel as good anymore. The Spirit Burn nerf actually hurts a lot for your late game potential. Or like not. I mean, Spirit Burn is... I would say it's a nerf. It's like a bit of a side grade, but for Viscous in particular, I think it hurts because you loved just AoE Spirit Burning the entire team with a splatter from across the map. Like that was the ultimate late game that you were kind of playing for. Obviously, your early game, I think, is still pretty good. I think he still has a role, and the cube is still an amazing defensive tool. And to be like a support that fights really well and aggressively can still be super nice. But I think he might even be like below Rem. I'm trying to think. I think he's still a B tier hero, but
out of the three, I think Rem is probably the strongest. That's personal bias towards you. I think that NA has a much higher preference for Ivy. I keep every time I see McGinnis in a draft, I have yams in my chat. They're going for McGinnis Ivy. Just wait, they're doing it. They're doing the McGinnis Ivy. And to his credit, when McGinnis was in the draft, I did see Ivy banned, I think, twice. So maybe there's something there that I haven't seen or whatever. But yeah, I mean, these characters are all kind of similar performing, and they do their own. They do kind of their own thing. To Viscus's credit, I think I've seen people running Lomain's build now, where he's just punching the crap out of everyone with his 3. Somehow it's not getting parried ever, and he's just killing people. So.
It's deceptively hard to parry in late game team fights. The Viscous
especially
punch,
in a team fight. It's like, how the hell are you going to focus?
Because you don't know in like the laning phase, you can just blind parry on the audio cue. But in team fights, good luck with that. But even if you do, it's like you don't even know it's going to be on you when there's just like a swarm of people fighting. Especially on Viscous, where I feel like often whenever I'm playing, I'm not all that committed to any one kill. I'm just like putting out as much damage as I can on different players as my burst cooldowns kind of come up. So I feel like maybe it's, you know, in that kind of an environment, you know, that kind of chaos, maybe it can look pretty good.
Does anyone in B tier need a demotion? Does Paradox
was
or
Silver like unplayed
need a
this
demotion?
week completely?
No one picks Silver. I think Silver's biggest problem right now is that she's kind of like a 6-pick character. She has to be, and like I mean like actual 6-pick, not 5-6, and then the enemy has a pick. I mean literally like a 6-pick character because of how the Sinclair interaction works. They had fixed the Sinclair wolf form abilities, if I recall.
Because before you could just pop the wolf form or something, right? Or what was it?
No, yeah, you could do it. Before it was kind of bad because if I recall, Sinclair when he cloned the ult didn't get the AP for all of her 1, 2, and 3 abilities. And now she does, or he does rather. So if you have 2 points in your assistant, now you have tier 2 leap, and you can really cause a lot of havoc. And
so it's based on your 1, 2, 3 investments.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I'm not sure
Sinclair
if
becomes a nasty counter.
Yeah, it's kind of a theoretical. It hasn't been really done in scrims or anywhere, but that's my assumption is why people don't want to pick her. I don't think Silver's a bad character though. A lot of 0 picks. Hoot is in the belief that Celeste is really broken right now. But I mean,
it's just in this meta, her lane feels so bad still.
I mean, it is bad. It's objectively bad. It's so bad. He's skipping it. He's buying golden egg and then running around praying his lane doesn't die. But yeah, it's the Radiant Daggers thing. Dynamo got picked, but he did not look good. I think that, again, I mentioned it in the last one, that I think he's more of a punish pick. I don't really think that you can just unilaterally draft this character.
Because I think
good in a few games this week. I still think she's kind of situational, and you kind of need to be ahead to get value from her. But I would almost put her at least above Shiv, who I think since the nerfs, even when he did get a little play last week, didn't look particularly fantastic.
Yeah, and no one seems very keen on picking Shiv either.
Yeah, I think Yamato also fits well from a lane domination perspective into like snowballing the game, and frontliners in general not being at a premium. It's like any frontliner that does get drafted, considering sometimes you like don't, or you have like one frontliner. For me, that is like means something, right? That they get picked. I honestly wouldn't even. I think Yam should be maybe swapping places with Silver at a minimum. In terms of like, I think Yam is being picked in the slot that Silver would have been maybe in weeks past.
Yeah, given pick probably, I'd agree. If you look at comp games right now. That being said, I don't think Yamato has really looked super great. But she is kind of like the consolation tank pick to.
Yeah. I don't think she's like dominating, but I think B feels kind of right for that. Like they actually might get played. They're not crazy to draft. They can kind of fit in a style with a bunch of caveats. But
it's really nice when you do get her as like a secondary tank. I think there was a game I watched where it was like Abrams Yamato. I think it was in NA, and they just have unlimited mid boss secure, and that's one thing that character is absolutely insane at. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely merits to pick a character for sure.
Yeah, she's always been so insane in that forced kind of a fight. I also think Yam in general was improved by just over time with the Rift objective just coming into the game. I think Yam is like just a good hero at like the forced you cannot run away from me team fight. That's what she does, is has a huge power spike with Shadow Transform, and if people are going to be forced to fight you, forced to tank power slashes, like that's fixing some of your biggest issues in like late game team fights in the air. Although now no one's really building for power slash, it's more of like the M1 build, but it's the same principle of just like turbo running you down. It's really nice if the enemy can't leave a small circle, right? Like it just helps your fundamental game plan in those moments. I wonder if even Mo should be promoted. I'm like, Mo, it didn't go great for Mo in Night Shift, but he got picked a lot.
Understand his potential. Yeah, I don't think he's weak. It's just I think he's easy to punish in draft, and I think when he was drafted, it was somewhat early in the draft as well. I know NA top 3'd him. I think another team placed him in the 4th position in draft, and he was 0. Was he actually 0-4 today or this week?
Yeah, I don't think he won.
Bad. Yeah, I mean. I feel like it's an interesting data point, right?
Like him getting
picked
play
at all is meaningful, but
yeah, I'd say he's like top C, bottom B. I don't think he deserves like a big promotion though. Like I don't know, there's some interesting stuff with like the cooldowns being a little better, to being able to like farm the Calico box is more as interesting. I mean, just quality of life stuff with the alt. I think he's fine, but.
Yeah, I like top of C for now, since TBD him actually showing better results. And especially I don't think Victor is like all that stiff competition for the top of C right now. I do
Yeah,
think,
definitely not.
guys, it's time for our good friends Wraith and 7-7 to go back into D tier now alongside Warden. I think it is just in terms of like carries that can't be played competitively. And somebody asked in the chat, this is really, we're focusing on competitive play with this, not ranked. Is that'd be a different kind of perspective.
This is based on night shift scrims,
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And these characters just feel impossible to pick. 7 is so easy to punish. I don't know why his win rate in pubs is crazy. Actually, I do. It's just his ult. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
He just presses
the ultimate is good. People don't run away from it. It's good.
Yeah,
turns out.
And, I mean, Wraith is kind of like a traditional pub stomp character. She just does 1 million damage, and if you don't deal with her, she's going to continue doing 1 million damage. So in comp, you're going to get run at, and you are going to die a large majority of the time. So it's really hard to justify picking Wraith. I'd rather pick Viper in a majority of those drafts, because she offers something to mid-boss fights with the Bola. So I think that's why I justify her down in D.
Yeah, some of these heroes, it's tough to balance because they're like, I would imagine Wraith is probably pretty good in pubs because people like let you farm 50,000 souls and then like ultra late game team fight. Or they just like don't realize they need to focus fire you every fight, and then eventually you get away with just killing everybody by yourself. So it's interesting to balance, I would think, but like ultimately the blink is, I think, it's very powerful mobility in its range, but it is very bad skill to cast. Like when you're dynamically fighting, you can be like stunned out of it, or like things can go wrong with this movement skill. In comparison, I think to like characters with some more reliable, like instantaneous, even things that don't move you quite as far, quite as extreme, or just things on a lower cooldown, things of that nature. It feels like the blink, until it's maxed, it really does not feel amazing to use. It's like a one and done, fully decommit from the fight and never come back, versus something that might let you kind of still look in for the engagement.
Yeah. I mean, she's kind of a victim of the slow and X meta to some extent as well. I mean, the other carries that are kind of being top prio don't really care so much about it. Like Geist and Venator are kind of just there, and you're slowing X, I'm sure, but then they just stand and fight you. Wraith really has to get out of danger pretty much, so that's another reason to mark her down. 7 just has a giant head. I'll be honest, that's why he gets fried. He just has a giant head.
That's actually true. The reason this hero's way too easy to crit. You're like, it feels terrible playing 7 on lane. Honestly, you feel like you're trolling on lane. Like if you can win the lane on 7, it's insane, but it just feels like that shouldn't happen against high skill players. Any other big movers? I don't know. Maybe Viper should kind of be in D tier as well. I think sort of similarly, like very rare kind of situational pick. I don't worry too much about the order in D tier. I see D is the dumpster. I just think you're all kind of grouped up in there until you get promoted out of it.
Does GT deserve to go down there? I mean,
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, he's pretty unplayed. I had a game the other day where I asked my GT why he didn't build any movement items, and he said, "I'm a great talent. Why would I need that?" And it's like, okay.
Dude,
he had glass cannon boundless, but he didn't have the stamina item.
I do feel like he's more situationally useful than some of the other ones. Like,
yeah,
maybe bottom C is fair. Like, maybe don't put him all the way in the dumpster, but keep him. He feels like Sinclair is also just like situationally he can be very good in the right circumstances, but I don't necessarily know what the draft is right now that GT is like suddenly super good in. But I think I could see him getting picked over something like a Warden or a Hades in the true dumpster.
What kind of bothers me in a way about GT is like, I would think the meta that's being played right now, in theory, is kind of a good meta for GT. Like in terms of a lot of active players making plays on lanes, like a lot of the time. That like historically this character was played as like a really good character to kind of park in the mid lane on the laning phase, and then as soon as you get your ult, you're like tempo playing around the map with the ult, having global presence with the ulti while still covering an undesirable part of the map, whether it's the mid lane or maybe at some point it's a side lane if you're one of your side laners wants to fight. The global presence from the ulti was fitting with, I would think in the current meta, like the Calicos, the Drifters, Abrams, Mina, Apollo, Holiday, these characters all kind of want to get in and mix it up. That, hey, a big nuke and a stun is a huge thing to give those players when in terms of plus oneing them on the side lane. So that to me is like maybe a scary sign for GT that like, yeah, he was really good. He got a few nerfs. and now he's kind of unplayed in a meta that, like, I don't know if there's a better meta for him. No,
Well, some of it is a lot of people. I don't know how much you guys rated on the show because I have to rewatch it afterwards. So I kind of skip through the games just to see the key moments. In the early game, especially, the amount of players contributing to a kill heavily affects the value of the kill itself. And having that +1, like it might already be a gank, right? It might already be a 3-man gank, and then a bird going there, he counts as a 4th. That kill is worth no money. So that
you're only getting like 68%, I think, once you're splitting it 4 ways of the total soul value of the kill. Like, it gets really bad really quick.
It's horrible. Yeah.
So like 3 and 4, the break point for the soul gain.
You get penalized pretty heavily. So you basically need to justify that soul loss for the spirit gain that he's getting for the bird. And he got that hurt in that patch, so maybe that's a reason. I think it's a vibes thing. I don't necessarily think it's like he's too bad to be played. I just feel like people want to have that individual agency. And he does kind of get run down by some of the characters in the meta too. Like Lash is really good against him. Billy's got chains, obviously, and can engage on him in any angle. There's a lot of characters that can kind of sneak up on him, like Calico. So I think him being so low rated is just a product of who's high rated right now.
Yeah, maybe it's almost. We've like gotten the meta is so fast, so aggressive that GT just can't keep up in like with the game as it continues to be played, and maybe even hitting your power shots in like late game team fights against this kind of mobility is like exposes you too much, right? Just puts you in too much danger, too likely to get run over. And also I think the reduction to the permanent spirit power scaling kind of hurts. I mean, before this character was played to like snowball early game, get 30-40 spirit power on the bird, and then buy Boundless Spirit and be like the single strongest nuker in the entire game by far, at 20 minutes into the game. Like almost like we see Apollo sometimes rushing Boundless now, and I feel like it maybe offers something kind of similar in terms of like an explosive level of nuking that just always gets you over the threshold to a kill. Maybe that's just replaced better by Mina and Apollo, and you don't necessarily want to be too all in on spirit damage at that point.
Yeah, definitely not.
All right, guys. I think I'm pretty happy with this tier list. I don't know if you guys feel the same. I think this is pretty. We can move on to our patron questions.
Yeah, this is pretty reasonable. I think it's a little bit staggered or biased towards A and D, but I think it's kind of correct based on how the games have been going.
Yeah. People were talking about, is Mirage a fraud S tier? I think we didn't even talk about S tier, but just to mention it, I still think Mirage is very good. Like, yes, he's not exactly a carry, but whatever he is, he's very good at it. Like, he's just like a good fighting hero.
I mean, late game, his sustain is ridiculous. He has a great lane. He has an ult that like breaks the macro that you can be anywhere at any time, which is just inherent. It's one of those things like Door that is just always going to be good to some extent. I don't know. And I think even when people are playing the carry build, which I agree is like less optimal, he's still very good when people are doing that, even if they're not getting the fullest out of him. And I think that the prio that he's taking in draft continues to just prove that. Like, every time he got shown, he was either a first pick or a first ban this week still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a believer in the Mirage.
Honestly, I think the only person to argue in S tier would be like Pocket. Like, maybe there's some argument to bring them down to A, but I just think the ult and the potential of Spirit Nuke that they do is still so insane at the pro level that I think even though there were some weird NA drafts where Pocket just got floated all the way through, I think looking ahead, they're still going to have a super high prio.
Yeah,
I agree, though. Pocket's kind of maybe on the bubble, like TBD, maybe as future weeks come, especially if there's any changes to Pocket's actual kit as opposed to just like, I think the Spirit Burn nerf also kind of hurt Pocket a little bit, who was also extraordinary, probably the best Spirit Burn user in the game at like just consistently proccing that item on a bunch of players running away. And that is just like an obscene source of consistent damage in the late game that is very, very hard to stay on the map against. But now that it's more individuated with the Spirit Burn, it's not quite as consistent to like completely pop a whole grouped up team. Affliction's still crazy though, and I think if you can get the team fights out, I also think if there was a meta where there's more frontliners being played, Abrams being picked every game, like I would think there's maybe an even better argument to be playing Pocket more consistently, in that kind of a situation. But all right, I think we can leave him there for now. Let's take a look at some of the questions. First up, I have a question from Danielle, who asks, of the heroes that were in priority pick 0, who do you wish most to make an appearance onto the night shift? This is a great question. Solomon, you want to flash the hero priorities? We can take a look at like which was untouched in this most recent week. And maybe let's each give an answer. I'm kind of curious. This is just full personal preference, like vibes. What do you want to see a little more of?
The first thing that my mind would go to would be Celeste. We talked a little bit earlier about her, about how awful her lane is these days, but I think she's such a fun hero to watch. The like level of skill expression, especially when pros are picking her up, is just the movement that you can do on this character is so ridiculous. I think that yeah, she's just fun to get to see in play, and I think if it weren't for how weak she was early game, she would fit really well into a lot of the other stuff that is going in this meta, with like Calico constantly playing for tempo, fighting the jungle the whole time. I would love if she was in a better spot, but I think inherently with the insane movement, she's a very hard hero to balance, and they've kind of gone and put a lot of her power back into her ult, which I think is the least engaging part of her kit. So yeah, I'd love to see her in a spot where she got played more, though.
I mean, I'll hide my personal bias. I won't say Viper. I'll say Graves. I think that Graves could be a potential answer to Doorman, and it would be really interesting to see people start letting Doorman through and 6-picking Graves or something.
What do you mean by that? Like, well, because I wouldn't have thought that. So like, say more about that matchup.
So you have as Graves. It's weird because you kind of need to be where the door is. When you put Graves 2 down in front of a door, I mean, it lasts like 10 seconds and it can hit multiple times. So that kind of jiggle peek stuff that Doorman players are doing on the Rift to kind of stall it out, you can't do that anymore. You try to play off the door at all, you're probably going to die because that CC is really long. It's a really good answer to mid-boss Doorman as well. It's not a full counter, like I said, because Graves kind of has to be where the door is and she's squishy and vulnerable, but I think conceptually it's a really interesting idea that I'd like to.
I like that. I think that's a good call out. I'm a Graves enjoyer myself. Played a bunch of games in the hero. The hero I'll say Kelvin. You know, it's like Kelvin's reign of terror is far enough into the past now that I'm kind of ready to bring him back. I think, yeah, this is like, I think it's a cool hero. I feel, pardon the horrific pun. But I think I actually think Frozen Shelter, as much as it's been like super broken in the past, I think it is kind of a cool mechanic. Maybe, alongside a buff, there could be some kind of a rework. Like I've talked about this in the past, like some interactability with Frozen Shelter, somehow, some way that's like, there's like the only thing in the game is like Dynamo can TP you out of it. But generally that's like the only thing in the game that can actually interact with people inside the Frozen Shelter, or the page can go through it. But almost nothing else, right? Can generally, most characters have no hope of engaging on it. So I think that's a little problematic. I think it's always been problematic. Obviously, back in the day when you could guarantee last at the reju, it was just completely heinous. Or like end the game inside of the Frozen Shelter. Like, oh, cool.
It would be interesting if he got played these days with Rift too. I mean, it was obviously kind of ridiculous when we had the bad times of Punch Earn with Kelvin.
Oh God,
but
so bad.
Yeah, that was not a fun time. But I think inherently he creates very interesting interactions, if very troubling interactions.
Yeah, I mean, there actually are a few more answers now to Kelvin. Whether they're bugs with items like split shot, I think goes through the dome still.
Yeah, the split shot in the AP rounds, I feel like those are bugs. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think that's supposed to happen.
I think AP rounds going through would be cool if it was intentional.
Yeah,
but even then, it's like,
makes sense,
would you really stand there and shoot the shelter to shoot somebody for like a fraction of your damage while they're super healing? Maybe,
probably not. But it's just one of those funny interactions that should exist because it feels
ones, right. People don't know about some of them, but you can shoot the dome itself if you have Tesla or capacitor, and I believe the dome counts as an entity, and you can shock the people on the inside.
Really?
And I think you can throw a Celeste ult at the dome itself, and it will bounce onto the people inside of it as well. So there's a little bit of interaction.
Okay, those have to be bugs. Those have to be bugs.
The Celeste one's definitely a bug. Celeste 3 also goes through the dome, so she can come out.
That doesn't surprise me, because Celeste 3 goes through the whole map, right? So like that seems like something that should continue to work that way.
Yeah.
But ultimately, even if you could put like, a little bit of damage through the dome, like one of the things I had suggested in the past was like, imagine dome, instead of being a sphere, imagine it's a like a big old soccer ball, right? Of like a bunch of hexagons, and you could like break pieces of the wall for like a relatively
similar to like
high amount of
McGinnis wall
damage.
where you can double heavy melee it. Are you thinking?
Yeah, I wouldn't even think heavies. It's like, for me, I would be more interested maybe in like a stat check, like a pure damage to break through it. Or maybe it can like only be broken from the outside but not from the inside. So you could trap people in and like there's no way out for them, like, which I think could be like, powerful to like gank people, but the people outside are not like out of the
Helpless.
game, out of the fight.
Yeah.
Helpless. Like just some, and obviously you'd have to like change a lot on the character. I'm not saying you would just do that change in a vacuum, because to be honest, I'd rather see more of the power budget on Kelvin on the other skills rather than just being the like guy with the most insane team fight ultimate, which is a bit of what he was in the past. So maybe you tone down the ultimate to allow you to put more budget into like, hey, make Kelvin a stronger, just fighting hero. Give him like the lane could be a little bit better. Maybe his gun could be a little bit, whatever. You could, spread the love a little bit more. But I just think Kelvin's a cool hero. I think it's a cool hero. I think it's fun to see played at the highest level. Adds a lot of interesting, team play. And in general, but maybe Paige and Kelvin are a similar spot. It's like these like very much like I am pretty much a support kind of characters are just untouched this patch, and it's been long enough where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of noticing a problem.
Yeah. Yep. So Celeste, Graves, and Kelvin, I guess.
Oh, he had one pick, but give me more Sinclair too. I hate that he's slowly just become the Dynamo counter bot. That character has so much extremely cool skill expression to be able to bring out. Like anytime he gets played, I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think Sinclair's Sinclair's a hero that like nobody is good at yet compared to like what people might be able to do in the future. Like this is a crazy character for the potential. It also is a character that will open up more and more the more heroes there are in the game, the more significant team fight ultis. I guess in a way he's been hurt by the overall nerfs to ulti cooldowns over the last 6 months because you just draft less of the big ultis, you care less about them, so you're inherently he's not going to have as many great ultis to steal.
Yeah, for sure.
But I agree, it's a good shout for a hero to see more of. All right, Spooky says, which Deadlock character do you think is most emblematic of the design philosophy for characters you hope to see the developers pursue moving forward? For example, build variety, kit utility, mobility, etc. Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's some of the heroes we talked about the most. I think it's, as much as it pains me to say this, I think it is the Doorband, it is the Sinclair, it is the Pocket. It's like these characters that are just like totally out there, like you've never seen a character like it before in an FPS. For me, or FPS, whatever Deadlock is, a third-person shooter MOBA. You just in general in a shooter game, you never see some of these, really, really crazy open-ended designs.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the spark for Deadlock. Celeste, maybe with like the mobility on Celeste, and Holiday a little bit too. Like these are just characters that could only exist in Deadlock, and for me, those are the ones that are always going to be the most compelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would add Viscous in there as well. I feel like he's like one of those characters that is so.
I was trying not to say it. As
he's biased. He's biased for Viscous. I mean, I'll even say Viper. He's got the sliding mechanic going up and down ramps is really unique. You're flexing the the Deadlock engine kind of. You're trying new stuff out, and it's cool to see. They aren't just like random skill shots. Yeah, those kind of characters. I'd like to see more of them. Even though I think like characters like Viscous are horrifically overpowered.
I think any character that interacts with the I think any character that like interacts with the innate systems of the game in a way that other games can't do is inherently cool. Like for example, like the melee parry mechanics. I think Billy's design is super cool. Like Blasted is a thing of rewarding you for chaining melees into your fighting, but the inherent risk of getting parried at any time and kind of making this whole like fighting game sub game I think is super cool. Even like little things like being able to parry puddle punch is sick, and anything that ties in with movement, also puddle punch, being able to like propel yourself, get more momentum. I think anything that does things that you cannot really do in other games in the way that it interacts with the base systems of the game is it will be what makes Deadlock more and more unique, and less just like, oh, this is a hero I recognize from League of Legends or Dota or any other previous competitive title.
Yeah.
All right, let's check out the next question, Solomon. We've got Pariah, who asks, should hero balance be based around the character's lore, i.e. Holiday being a gun hero based on her lore rather than the current Spirit build? I think I will say no, in the sense of like, I don't think it's bad that Holiday's a Spirit hero because of her lore. I do wish there were more characters for whom there is a more serious interesting decision about what's the best way to play them. I think like for a lot of heroes in the game right now, it is very clear that they should be either gun or spirit. And there's
So Jake, you're saying McGinnis is good for the game.
yes, I think the fact that McGinnis can be played two ways is very good for the game. I think like that's always something I loved about Dota for I played Dota for like 10 years or something or more, and I've always loved that there's a lot of picks like this could be the carry, this could be the support, this could be the mid. It makes drafting incredibly interesting and dynamic for competitive play, but it's just also a lot of fun for people to genuinely be able to experiment with builds. I mean, I think Deadlock does a good job of this. It's a far cry from a lot of games like League of Legends where it's like almost like enforced what your role is. Like they're not even there's not even really a desire, I think, to add that like you can be a carry or a support. It's like no, that's not what this hero jungles, this hero supports, whatever. There's very little flexing, and Deadlock has a good amount, but I think that's something I would hope they keep their eyes on for like, hey, like maybe the holiday gun build should be more viable. Like it's I don't think I've seen anyone play it in any game at all for like 3 months. And like maybe it was OP for a while, but does it need to be that bad? I don't know.
I mean, I actually mirror Jake's opinion pretty much 1-to-1 here. Also, when we're talking about hero balance, it's not really like, I mean, doing a build of a sort is like kind of you're interacting with the item shop. It's not really related to the lore of the character. I think the lore of the character kind of speaks to what they're doing in the game. Like Holiday's got her barrel. She does have crack shot. Sure, like she builds spirit and stuff like that. But is that really like diverting from what her lore is? I actually don't know Holiday's lore, so I mean, I could be sounding really ignorant right now.
I'm assuming when they say Holiday lore, I'm saying she's like a girl with a gun. Like I think that's my like. She's like, oh, she has a gun, and she's like a cowgirl, she's got her 6-shooter. Like you would think that might be more of her kit, but.
I just feel like her kit kind of like, encapsulates what she's trying to be. So I don't know. I feel like they're doing a good job. The balance is more item shop related. I think I don't think it's related to the heroes too much.
Yeah, I think a lot of characters like do a really good job at what they are on paper. Like if you look at the way Venator plays, is that not like exactly the way that you would imagine that character gets played, of like being a really strong gun carry, having the ability to just like smite any character with his ult, given the right circumstance. I think actually a lot of the cast fits really closely to what you can kind of conceptualize them as. But I think what Valve has done a good job at is that they've left it open-ended and given you these options to build into. I mean, it's basically following up the last question as well, that I think the design philosophy for Deadlock, as best they can, it's hard to balance right, should always be making as many options as viable as possible so that you can keep that diversity. The more that you let like individual things get kind of whittled down into heroes only being good at one thing, the more boring the game innately gets. And it's really fun that you do have that flexibility that you were talking about, Jake. And I hope that they honestly just keep it up with future hero balance.
That's a pretty good comment. How are we going to balance around Lash's lore? I don't think it's possible.
He's got to just Lash and Bebop enter the, oh my god, what's the Valorant character who puts you in the one?
The ISO ult, the gulag.
Yeah, puts you in the gulag at the start of the game for like you play for First Blood at the start of the game as Lash Bebop, and then you're allowed to play normally after the hard 1v1.
If they really cared about the lore, they would add so that you could emote in game as Lash and let them hear you on the enemy team.
Oh my god, some emotes that they Deadlock, that's it. Like all the cosmetics and emotes are gonna just go so crazy in Deadlock. Like the fact that it's third person and you see the characters, and it's just so much opportunity. Imagine you could emote, like add, I hope they do emotes where you could pop them while you're like flying through the air,
like keep your momentum, like when you're
exactly
when you're using a pocket one, kind of you're just floating through the air doing your emote.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of that's the kind of thing I'd love to see. Some TF2 had a ton of emotes that were just totally silly, like high fives and like partner dances and stuff, all sorts of ridiculous stuff. It's a little meme, but of course, I think people like a little dose of the memes as a way, not to counterbalance, but maybe it is a counterbalance to like how innately intensely competitive the game is. That like there's some whimsy in some of these sort of alternate systems, like I don't know, like the Urn yelling at you and telling you need to deliver him faster, and that's like a gameplay mechanic that they're tuning to reveal the urn carrier a little bit more, right? I like those sort of systems, and I think those do a lot for the appeal of the game to the casual audience.
Just something to remind you you're playing a video game. It's not do or die.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right. So Doze asks, how do you guys feel about no supports meta? Right now, it feels like Rem, Viscus, and Ivy are the only available picks, and very often see comps with no supports at all. Is it better than some of the other metas, e.g. past double support meta? We talked about this a little bit in the draft phase, and I think generally we'll maybe likely agree, like especially with Paige Kelvin, it's like, it's just unfortunate to see those heroes out of the meta. It's an interesting kind of dilemma between the goal of flexibility that heroes can be played in all these different ways, but also there are people who want to play a support playstyle, right? Like that is a common playstyle from hero shooters and MOBAs. This is a way people want to play the game, and I do think I would like to see, as time goes on, stabilized competitive metas, there being a place for that kind of play. And right now, I think there's kind of not. Like Ivy, Viscus, Rem are all good because they can do a lot more than support. And the characters that feel like they really are focused on supporting, just unfortunately competitively, even when you're picking the Ivy, right, you're picking her for like all the stuns and the control. She's as much a fighter as she is a support. And can't say the same for Paige or something, or Kelvin, who both are like these bodies that are really vulnerable in a fight.
Yeah. I think that Valve out the gate did a really good job of like giving a lot of agency to supports in a way a lot of other games don't. To the same level, like I think Kelvin is the best example of like out the gate. This guy was so strong, would completely change team fights just on his own with one ultimate, and the rest of his tools were honestly pretty strong as well. They put themselves in a position where you kind of have to balance in a way where either these super impactful ults become kind of unplayed at the top level or are like complete game changers. But I think like the existence of supports having more say than just like being kind of one-dimensional, like they heal or they're a chain CC bot, which maybe Paige is still kind of that, but with characters like Ivy, like Viscus, who have a lot more interest to them being relevant, I actually think is like a long-term better thing for that class in terms of what Deadlock is, to have these more interesting approaches to like what is a support, what do they provide for the team. But I think if they could find a way to get people like Paige and like Kelvin in a more balanced state where they're actually getting played. Obviously, any meta that gives more hero diversity is just inherently good and inherently interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of more of a numbers issue here. I actually do much prefer the balance philosophy behind like characters like Rem, Viscus, and Ivy that are all capable of doing stuff that aren't just like e-kittening, I guess. Their lane. I feel like some people that want to play support are trying to avoid mechanics in the game. They don't want to deal with the mechanically difficult parts of the game, and I feel like encouraging everyone to be involved in that is really important. That's my personal take. I feel like if you play support, you should still be willing to throw hands on Paige or whatever. It's just her kit is just not built for it right now.
Yeah, I will say though, Lightbringer, I think we shouldn't write off the e-kittens. I think it's okay for there to be characters in the game that do disengage from certain systems, at least relatively, because at least that was my experience in Overwatch. I know people complain a lot about characters like Mercy and Moira, but my experience in Overwatch was that actually it was a fantastic thing for the game that these characters existed, because so many people came to try Overwatch that were like not willing to play a more intense FPS. Like so many people who were like, I can't aim, could, by playing a character that doesn't require much aim, get into the world of an FPS, and then you end up learning how to aim. Even those characters, you don't become like, you're not going to start like beaming headshots after playing Mercy for a long time, but you learn very fundamental mechanics of a shooter, like navigating the world and looking around and having like a field of view, right? And like these are like fundamental mechanics that you still, like no matter how, even if you like, let's say you're not going to like aim deathmatch with your gun, I still think there's so many other systems in the game. Like, it's not that the game is like, like because Graves has auto aim, right? Like, I think people who think Graves is like a very, very easy, straightforward character are like wrong, essentially. That like they miss the fact that you could even take aim completely off a character, and there's still so much going on in Deadlock. There's incredible room for skill expression.
Oh, sure. You're not wrong. I guess when I mean like e-kitting, I mean literally someone who is just only sitting in the back waiting to press one button, and that is their lot in life. That is their job, and I want them to avoid that as a design philosophy. I don't want to see a Viscus with Rescue Beam, and his job is to press Rescue Beam and Cube. I think it's really boring. So I hope that even if they do have supports, it's not like you have to aim that hard, on a Viscus, even to engage a little bit in pressing like Splatter or Puddle Punch. And like Page is a very generous gun, stuff like that. I think that's good design. I just feel like to get value out of this character, you need to do more than just press 2 and sit in the back and press 4 something.
Yeah, I think Rem is the best example of where they've succeeded with that, because on paper he should be the most e-kidney character in the game. He should just be Yuumi. His whole thing is attaching, becoming intangible, and healing up his team, and I mean he does that well. But the interesting ways in which he interacts with Sinners, the macro presence he can have with buffing his little helpers onto troopers and being able to push waves that way is all really, really interesting stuff. That means that instead of just being a healer that sits on his teammates' backs, he is engaging with the gameplay systems and forcing the people who play him to participate in the macro and participate in more of the game than just literally being Yuumi. So I think that they've done a good job of giving some of that, like, e-kidney potential to the people who want that, but still having characters that keep their agency and don't lose it because of that.
All right, let's see if there's any last minute questions. Sketchy JJ asks, out of all people who cast DLNS, who do you think you could beat in a 1v1 in Deadlock? I'd leave that up to you guys. I think I'm the highest ranked caster, but I actually don't know. I think it's me. I think ZP is next. And then I don't know Jason and Dan's ranks. I think it's probably Jason then Dan. I'm not sure.
If you're asking for the easiest, I'm taking GB. That guy's a controller player. I don't know if he counts as a caster.
ZB's going down on the roller.
I remember I was working a show with him for Valorant, and he came in one day and we were talking about Deadlock, and he was like, I wonder if I could play it with the controller. I was like, GP, you cannot do that. That's terrorist behavior to try and play Deadlock with a controller. And he was like, I think it might work. So I'm taking it.
Give it a shot, man. Why not? Like I would love to see, who knows? Why not?
I'd definitely take on ZP as well. I mean, there'd be a lot of banter in that 1v1 for sure. We'd be talking smack.
Yeah, that'd be a go. I played ZP in a 1v1 on Street Brawl in what is the event we went to in DreamHack Atlanta. We did an event there for Intel, and we played a little 1v1 on Street Brawl, and I got the most disgusting and furnished rolls of all time on the opening. I got like escalating exposure, enhanced toxic bullets. Like, oh god.
Oh yeah, you gotta talk mad smack.
Yeah. Over the LAN.
Good.
I hope they add some kind of 1v1 mode. It would be cool to see mid lane 1v1, like almost like in Dota. This is something that they use as a tiebreaker in rare circumstances. I just think it's like it's like a cute little thing to add in the game. I don't think it's a priority at all for the devs. I don't think they should care about it in the medium term even, but long term, or maybe it's like a mod or a thing to do, but to make like a 1v1 mid kind of a situation could be kind of interesting.
In terms of onboarding, that's actually I taught all of my friends how to play the game. I would just 1v1 them. I was a bastard. I'd pick Mo and 1v1 them, which is extremely unfair. That was back in 4 lane and stuff. But you teach them like the fundamentals. It's really easy to bring someone into the game when you can just 1v1 them. There's no pressure to win the game. You're just kind of telling them like, hey, the healer minion's important because of this or whatever. And I actually think it'd be a great addition to the game.
All right. Same question as above, but IRL fighting. I'm not gonna lie, ZP's a big dude. I don't think I'm taking him on. Jason's tall. Dan's pretty fit. I don't know. I think I'm the weakest. I think I'm the most vulnerable of the NS casters in a fist fight.
What's Solomon's build?
I don't know if I can take on anyone.
What's Solomon's build? I think Solomon. I actually don't know. I don't think I've met Solomon in person. Solomon's low. Me and Solomon are low rank. We're the lowies for the IRL fighting, I think.
All right, I'll take on Solomon. He's in closer proximity.
Yeah, we're I think the whole crew on this particular podcast is not exactly in that realm. There's a few more questions, but I think it's probably a good place to wrap up unless you guys see something you really want to answer. We're getting up to 2 hours. I want to respect everybody's time. But I guess as we come to a close, I'll just say thank you guys for being on the show. Mimi in particular, thanks for coming on as a guest. Always great to hear your thoughts and opinions. Hope we get to have you back on Night Shift more often.
Yeah, thanks so much. Was very fun. Excited to watch next week.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was great to have you on.
This cat's here.
Bonus cat. Yeah. All right, for folks who stayed the whole time. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Obviously, if you're here, you probably already know this, but I'll plug it anyway. Night Shift every Wednesday. We got some hopefully exciting surprises coming next week on Wednesday. So TBD, some announcements, announcement of an announcement for that. I promise we'll get it out as soon as we can. And then, of course, this podcast, same time every week, every single Thursday. So mark your calendars, be there, be square. Patrons, make sure to ask those questions in Q&A, get them in early so we can make sure we get them in on the show. But that'll be a wrap with the bonus cat as well. All right, guys. Thanks so much. See you next time.
All right.